Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. Careful hitting all those camera buttons there, AP. Nice to see you. Glad to have you watching the show today. Welcome, welcome. How are you feeling? Did you have a good weekend? Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it. I know some people last week in Rumble, especially, were saying like they could do without the audience applause, but sometimes it helps me to get fired up. You know how it be on a Monday morning. We get up, we're a little sluggish, and you just don't want to start the week. But luckily, it's spring and it's absolutely beautiful out. Hope you had a great Mother's Day and got to spend it with people that you love and you care about. Steffi and I were talking a little bit over the weekend about how Mother's Day can be challenging for certain people. And I know she was thinking about me, obviously. Those who know my history, I'll just, rehash it. But for those who don't, of course, my mother passed away when I was very young. Um, but I did have some wonderful women in my life who kind of stepped in to fill the gaps, to sort of play the role of mothering me from, my early teenage years until, graduated from high school. Uh, and I certainly appreciated them. Like my grandmother was one of them, my mom's mother, and one of my close friends' mother, Julie Rue. I used to call her Mama Rue. And yeah, I just got to thinking about it over the weekend, how some people might misinterpret uh, the emotions that some people might be feeling on Mother's Day as sort of trying to, rain on other people's parades, which it certainly isn't. It's just that Mother's Day is difficult for some people. And I'm very good at squishing my emotions and putting them in a box and just kind of like pushing them down and just hiding them away because, nobody cares about a guy's emotions, right? They don't want to see that in public. Put that out away. But we talked about it a little bit yesterday and how we felt about it. And of course, Stephanie still has her mother, and we got to talk to her a little bit, Verna, and tell her a little bit about how we feel about her. And there's a lot of great moms out there, and Mother's Day I think is a very special and important holiday. So is Father's Day, but it's nice to have that special day just for moms, because without moms we couldn't be here. None of us would be here. Thank you to Robbie Theraman for smashing that like button. We appreciate that. Make sure that if you are a regular viewer, you know what to do. Smash that like button as well. If you're a new person here and you're just watching the show, hopefully we'll make a good impression on you, and we might even get you to subscribe to the channel that you're watching us on. We're on the Spreely app, as well as on YouTube, on Facebook, and Twitch, and even on Rumble this morning, of course, was where we get a lot of viewers lately. So it's nice to see our Rumble audience has been growing. Make sure that you slap that like button like it did you wrong. The Onion Dip joining Morning F Monday. Yes, exactly. Thank you. There's an applause for you, even if the Rumblers don't like the applause. Donald Trump is freaking out the left and his haters on the right because he is back with a vengeance. You better watch out because he might be the president again. Are you ready? Are you ready for it to be America first again? I know some of you are like, right, right. And other people are, and the left and the media are like, just, they can't stand it right now. They can't take it. I'm reading the news this morning. Politico says pollsters worry the Trump problem is back with a vengeance. Public opinion, this is subheading. Public opinion specialists fret about the former president's possibility of ruining their record once again. Pollsters are again staring down a familiar nemesis, Donald Trump. We'll talk about that this morning. And then the headlines I'm reading today are just, of course, just as hyperbolic as Trump is. I'm reading today, Trump has easier path to 2024 nomination with the latest Republican rules. GOP fears Trump's problems with suburban women will only get worse, yada, yada, yada. And then can you guess who Donald Trump sent his Mother's Day wish to today? It wasn't, or yesterday, it wasn't Melania. That's for sure. We'll talk about that and Donald Trump and the Donald Trump problem this morning when we get back. So I heard that Barney Stiles says that he is not hearing sounds. Is that the case with the rest of us? Let us know because let's see here. Let me hit that button. Yeah, you're right. The Stream Deck. It's not firing on all cylinders, is it? Well, what can you do about that? We'll do our best today to just give you a great show. Anyway, let's pop over to our live chat channel. So maybe that'll be the issue that we needed to fix. Do. Nope. Stream Deck says no. Okay. Well, that's how it goes. We've got a lot of great guests for you today. At 7:30 a.m., I'm going to speak to John Miltimore, who is making waves for his comments. He got quoted in the Daily Mail after Joe Biden came out and said that the greatest threat that we face in the United States is not the national debt, not thieving, conniving, scheming politicians, not a growing threat from the communist Chinese. No, none of that. The greatest threat in the United States it is white supremacy, of course. Yes, that is the greatest. Yes, no sounds on your end, says Caleb. Sad trombone, says Studio 304. You guys are gonna have to do the sound effects yourselves. Do 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 do. Anyways, I'm gonna reset the Stream Deck and hopefully we'll be able to get some sounds for you. John Miltimore, he is the managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education. He got quoted in the Daily Mail for calling out Joe Biden for that, and hopefully it will work. No, Stream Deck is just not going to work for us today. It says, no, we're not going to have any sound. Oh, I know why. I know what happened. So whenever you do an update for any software, it just, for some reason, and I know that Chris Morrill, who's on the live stream, for some reason, whether it's Windows or Mac or whatever, if you have a computer that works, then what your software companies like to do is they like to break it. But they call breaking it, they call it updates. You know what I'm talking about, right? So it's like you have your computer and it works and everything's fine and your computer's working just fine. And then your computer says, "Hey, listen, we've got these great new features. We'd love to add." The software says, "You know what you need to do? You need to update your software." And so then once you update your software, then we're going to provide you all these new features and everything like that. But what they actually are doing is saying, Q, we can hate you. And we're going to break your computer today because we don't want your computer to work. We hate commerce. We hate having software that works. We want your hardware to break down too. What I love too is when your software, your operating system actually updates your computer without your consent. Right? You turn on your computer and it's like, pre-installing updates and then you don't even have a choice. Anyways, so I did a software update this morning and you know what, that was my stupid fault. That was really just my stupid fault. I should not have updated the software to the Stream Deck. And that's what you get for allowing a company to update their product, which they claim to support. Anyway, so no sound effects today until I can go to a commercial break and try and solve it, but it probably is not going to happen. So guess what, you're just going to have to go in raw, baby, when we go into our in and out of our commercial breaks. There you go. Is the update asking for money? That would be a red flag. No, it's just saying it wants to give me much better software experience. And Hot Water 84 is here this morning. New sub here, fellow Missourian. Glad to have found you. Normally, I would do the applause sound effect for you for the new follower. Thanks so much for joining us, Hot Water. Glad to have you. We're going to talk about the news, I promise, in just a moment, and I'll stop bitching. It's Monday morning. At 7:51 this morning, we're going to talk about if you have to defend yourself. I guess you're going to have to do it without any witnesses these days. If you choose to defend yourself in public, be very careful about how you do it. We're going to talk about which ethnicities of persons, which colors, which sexualities you're allowed to defend yourself against. I think we need to come up with a handy dandy coloring chart. I don't know if you've ever seen that meme of Peter Griffin that shows like the skin color chart for how the police are going to deal with a certain type of criminal, right? And so what we probably need is something like that in real life where we can say, okay, so you're being assaulted by a person of unknown ethnicity, and if you can just hold up the color, if you can get that person of whatever their ethnicity or sexuality is, right? If they're a man in a dress, we'll say, don't defend yourself. So just let them rob you, beat you, assault you, your family, your friends, your kids, right? A random old lady on the subway. So if it's a man in a dress, you got to let that happen. If it's a white man, you can defend yourself against that person, provided they're not a member of Antifa, in which case you're probably going to need some kind of a hygiene detector in order to determine, the relative hygiene, right? You can kind of tell the difference between the left and, like, just like your average, like, conservative man, if they're white, by just kind of like judging their hygiene standards typically, right? So maybe we need something that's like not only an ethnicity and sexuality detector, maybe something to so probe to sort of determine what gender is the person that's attacking you, or your friends or family loved ones. But we also need sort of a hygiene detector, so maybe something that can pick up BO in order for us to figure out if the person attacking you is a leftist. But if you're in private, if no one's watching, and hopefully there isn't a camera around, and you're being attacked violently by someone who has a criminal record, for example, then you might be able to defend yourself. Just make sure you don't leave any witnesses, and of course, just make sure that nobody's recording as you will. And we'll talk to Dominick Izzo this morning at 8 a.m. about that. He's a former cop from the Chicago area. He wasn't a Chicago police officer, but the surrounding area. And we're going to talk to him about what he thinks about vigilantes and about that case in New York, the Jordan Neely case. We're still talking about this weekend. Glad to have you here today. A reboot might help, yes, but that would mean the stream is down, Chris, unfortunately. So I probably should have just tested it before I, went ahead and started streaming after I did that update. But you know what? There's a million billion things going on this morning, and I can't do it all. So we'll speak to Dominick Izzo this morning at 8 o'clock about vigilantes and his view of them as a former police officer. Todd Steibinger, he's on Rumble today. Gosh, I want to hit my sound effects button so bad, but it just doesn't work. We'll talk to Cliff Maloney today at 8:30 about the debt ceiling debacle. I was reading this morning that Donald Trump had posted on Truth Social, unless the Republicans get everything they are asking for in terms of cost cutting, in particular all of the trillions of dollars of inflation causing waste that has stupidly been approved over the last 2 years, much of it for the Green New Deal con job, they will have no choice but to let the Biden administration default on U.S. debt. Better now than later, Trump says, especially with the $32 trillion of debt out there. When I was president, the Dems would cavalierly say they don't care about default. Yes, that doesn't make any sense. Buddy Mansour says, are we talking about the border? Might be a question I'll ask for John Miltimore here in a little bit. Buddy, if you have a specific question that you'd like me to ask John Miltimore about the immigration problem on the southern border, ask it to me specifically. The best way to do it, honestly, is to text the show. You, anybody, or Buddy Mansour, or anybody else can text us to have your question read on air at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear your thoughts and your questions. If there's a story that you think that we're missing today, we'd love to hear them from you. Good to see you this morning over on Rumble, The Onion Dip, Fed Up Kentuckian. Glad to see you guys over there. Make sure you smash that like button, as well as our friends over on YouTube and the Cantina crew and on the Spreely app today. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. Glad to see everybody here. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend and a wonderful Mother's Day. Did you see I got retweeted by Tim Pool for my anti-leftist meme? All of a sudden I started seeing uh I I guess I shouldn't say this because I'll get, even though the death threat was to me, or I guess what's the word? Can we even say suicide on YouTube or anything like that? I don't know. I just said it. But I just started getting people, telling me that I needed to unalive myself because I got retweeted by Tim Pool. So whenever you get retweeted by Tim Pool, the left's going to come after you, and all these people started coming after me. Some guy who claimed that I tried to get him to write for my blog like 10 years ago was like, Austin, you're pathetic. I haven't heard from you in 10 years and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, who are you, dude? Like, I don't get it, but Tim Pool has so many haters that whenever he retweets you, you just kind of get like the lovely casual shade from all of these people. And I guess a lot of like people who are anarchists who are really just kind of leftists in disguise. Um, Hate me because I've joined the Republican Party and I have absolutely turned my strategy towards facing down the left, which I see as the greatest threat. Doesn't mean that I don't go and fight against right-wing theocrats or fascists on the right, because if you watch the Wake Up America show, you know that I have no love for the Nazis. It's just that I just happen to think that we need to kill the commies before we kill the Nazis this time. A little bit of a reversal from World War II, if you will. I would hit the the laughter button, but it doesn't work. All right. I want to talk to you about the left and the media freaking out about Donald Trump but I need to go take a commercial break. And here's why, because I'm going to go try and fix that Stream Deck. Normally, music would come and play right now and be like do 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 with a little bit of a punk rock beat in order for us to transition to the commercial. But that's not going to happen right now because the Stream Deck just decides not to work. All right, when I get back, we will talk about more about Donald Trump on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apeforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit aporlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. We're grateful to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. Smash that like button if you're liking the content that you see today. We're super grateful to have all of our friends listening and watching to us from all over the internet. There's a lot of great people joining us on rumble.com today. I would click the applause button, but there really is no applause button that's functioning today. But we are grateful to have our friends joining us over on YouTube as well. Maybe there's a way for us. Let me see. Let's see. Stream Deck 2. I have to do this on the fly. Unfortunately, because the way this sucker works. Streamdeck.exe. Let's test this out. Stream Deck 2. Nope, nothing working there either. Well, it'll be a long day for me today as I try and solve whatever the technical issues are that are giving us problems. But whatever, you didn't come here to hear me bitch. Let's talk about the news. Very briefly, before I go back to talking about Donald Trump here for just a moment, I have to read this to you. It's hilarious. So the Washington Post wrote an article that says that the Second Amendment means that the Second Amendment allows for the AR-15 to be banned. Excuse me, sorry about that. So yes, let me just read to you the headline, the actual headline. Analysis from the Washington Post. The Second Amendment allows a ban on the AR-15. So I retweeted that article today, but my headline was, the First Amendment allows the government to ban the Washington Post. Am I right? Or am I right? Yes. If the Second Amendment means that you can ban AR-15s, the First Amendment absolutely should mean that you can ban the Washington Post, right? That's what the Constitution means, the opposite of what it says. That's what the left has determined. Anyways, I would hit the laughter button, but again, that's not working, right? And Camellia Peterson sent me a message saying, "Can't hear sound effects?" ? I know. Okay, I know. Watch me suffer today. Isn't that more interesting? An ex-GOP representative coming after Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. He says they both offer different types of white nationalism. Oh no, the white nationalism. It is the greatest threat. It's coming to get us. Yeah, some loser. David Jolly, former congressman from Florida. He's a Republican. I guess he left the GOP in 2018, saying that now that Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis both offer different types of white nationalism. That's what happens when people become losers, like they lose their campaigns or they get kicked out of office or whatever. They just turn sour and they turn against everybody. See, for my view was, if you can't beat them, join them, right? That's the healthy attitude. If you lose an election or you get kicked out of office, you need to change your tactics, because what was working before wasn't working. Is not going to work in the future, right? Yeah, if all else fails, try again, I guess. It's the same stupid stuff. Anyways, but this former GOP representative apparently agrees with Joe Biden that white supremacy is the greatest danger that we face. The greatest danger. Oh, God. John Miltimore, he's a managing editor for the Foundation for Economic Education. He got quoted in Fox News and in the Daily Mail for going after Biden, saying the Democratic Party spent most of the 19th century and much of the 20th using overt racism to win elections. They're doing it again in the 21st century. The racism just looks a lot different than the 19th century version. That's good stuff. You guess what? We got him coming up on the show here in just a moment. Let me go get John Miltimore during the commercial break, and I will put him on camera and I will bring him to you in about 2-3 minutes, and we will talk to him about those comments when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Music would be here and it would be rocking, and then we go to break. We'll be back.
Good morning to the Cantina crew. This is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist! Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins!
The poison of white supremacy, as I did my inaugural address, to single out as the most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland, is white supremacy. And I'm not saying this because I'm at a black HBCU. I say it wherever I go. So stand up against the poor.
He's not saying that just because he's at a black HBCU. He says that wherever he goes. I'm not sure which is more disturbing, that statement, the first statement or the second. Joining us now to discuss is John Miltimore, the managing editor for the Foundation for Economic Education. John, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, good morning, AP. Great to be here with you.
Yeah, I saw you were getting a little bit of action online yesterday from FoxNews.com and the Daily Mail, where they were quoting your response to what President Biden had to say there. Shall I read it, your tweet out loud, or are you prepared to? Do you have it pulled up?
No, go ahead. No, I'm actually don't have it in front of me, so go ahead.
Okay, this is how you responded to that. You said that the Democratic Party spent most of the 19th century and much of the 20th using overt racism to win elections. They're doing it again in the 21st century. The racism just looks a lot different than the 19th century versions. Um, Care to explain yourself, sir?
Sure. The first part is kind of funny. I was just at my son's baseball game, and they had a rain delay, so I grabbed my phone and I saw this speech and listened to it, and it really did rub me the wrong way. We do a good job of remembering that America had a very, there were racial challenges throughout our history. That's no secret. We do a good job of remembering that. What we often forget is that politicians have been stoking racial fears as long as there's been racism. And if you look back, the Democratic Party did that more than anyone. They're the party of the Confederacy. They're the party of Jim Crow. They're the party of the KKK. All those things stem from the Democratic Party. And for some reason, we never talk about that. When we see racial exploitation throughout history, go back and look at the Civil War posters. Go back and look at during Reconstruction. They were playing all these games trying to get Americans to kind of hate one another based on color. And that's really what I see when I listen to Biden's speech. It really bothered me. I don't think in my lifetime I've seen any president certainly use race in such a overt manner to get people angry at one another. And I can see there's political gain in this. This is why we've been doing it for 150 years, right? It can be successful politically. You can, I think it's probably where the genesis came. I don't know this, but my hunch is like Biden's numbers are in the toilet, and this is how you rally your base. And we saw in 2012, he did much the same when he was running for re-election. He said they're going to put you all back in chains. You remember that? This is racial demagoguery to me, and I think it should be condemned by everyone. Whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or Independent, and it doesn't mean you have to say, "Oh, I support Donald Trump for that," or "I support Republicans for that." But we got to be careful about using demagoguery in this way, and it rubbed me the wrong way. And I normally don't like to go tribal with politics and stuff, like in this kind of got into that vein. But that tweet bothered me, and I think Democrats need to be held their feet to the fire a little bit on their past, their history with racism, and using that to win elections.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's something that, there's no way we could solve this in just a 12-minute live stream conversation. So make sure that you subscribe to the Wake Up America show, because John Miltimore does make a weekly appearance here as a guest on the program. We're certainly grateful that he's so generous with his time. Quest Fanning dropped a super chat. Normally I would hit my applause button on there, but it's not working today. And he says, as much as Biden enjoys pandering, it's not because he's at an HBCU that he says white supremacy is America's greatest threat. It's actually because he's a race baiter. And that is a super chat that was dropped in there by Quest Fanning. We certainly are grateful for those. They help us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty, which is, of course, what John Miltimore is all about as a managing editor at the Foundation for Economic Education himself. John, to sort of close out this conversation, or I guess round it out, I mean, would you say that the reason that the Democrats were able to sort of rebrand themselves as a non or anti-racist party or non-racist party, whatever you'd like to call it, would you say that the way that they were able to get away with that was because through the Civil Rights Act movement of the 1960s?
Yeah, I think that did have a lot to do with it. And that I was wondering if that conversation, would come up. Libertarians, talk about this a lot. I think the Civil Rights Act was a big part of it. I think Barack Obama was kind of a turning point as well, in a way that at first a lot of people celebrated, right? Now, I won't claim I was an Obama voter. I wasn't, but I thought there was a milestone there, and it was something that we can look at. Like, wow, maybe we've kind of buried the hatchet on race. Like maybe this is something. I think a lot of people believe that. And I was thinking, I thought of this this morning as preparing for this a little bit. Obama never spoke like this, right? It's something, a lot of Obama's policies I disagreed with, but he was presidential most of the time, right? I think that's something both the last two presidents have forgotten a little bit, that you're supposed to be presidential, that you're supposed to carry yourself, You're supposed to be above politics. At least we know presidents behind the doors. There's always that stuff, right? There's always the political machinations. But the American people don't need to see that. And what they want to see are presidents that rise above all the politics, that still look at us as one country. And Obama was able to do that, to his credit. We haven't seen that in a long time. And Joe Biden ran as somebody who's going to unify this country. And now he's running around claiming that, white supremacy is the biggest domestic terror threat in the world. And it's not true. But second, I think his motivations for that are not pure. I think this is a political calculation. He thinks it's going to help rally his base. I think he's probably wrong on that. Thankfully, I don't think that'll work. But that whether he wins the election or not is another matter. But it is something I hope he has done a good job of writing about some of these things in the past. Like Larry Reed is one of my favorite feed writers, great historian. He's written about things like FDR, we look at FDR as this great president who would unify, and he would invite Jesse Owens, to the White House and things like that. We have this image that Democrats have always been the party of racial progress, but it's really not true. But it's something I think Americans are generally, most of them aren't aware of.
A lot of people on the other side of the aisle, a lot of people, I think, thought that the Donald Trump factor was over, that after 2020, that he would kind of like slink away into Mar-a-Lago and just sort of disappear. But what I'm reading this morning, John, is the polls showing Donald Trump in a very strong, commanding lead to be the Republican nominee for president of the United States again, which means that we're looking at something of a repeat of 2020, Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. You remember how divisive it was last time, and add to that the pandemic. But nothing has changed in people's views of Donald Trump from 2020 to 2024, John. What do you expect to happen if it is a matchup again between Biden and Trump? Because he wants revenge. And God bless him. It is a little entertaining to watch, John. Wouldn't you say?
For me, it's not anymore. I was entertained for a while. Like I was at like most people, and you could see like his punchiness, like there's things about it. I stopped being entertained, and maybe that comes back. I don't know. There was something he said the other day that did get a rise out of me. I don't remember what it was. I look at this and I look at like democracy. If you like that word or hate it, that's kind of what we're in now. Like the small R republicanism's a thing in the past. I think we are like closer to a raw democracy now, and we're seeing what happens there. Like we're seeing there's in some ways it's not even democratic, right? Because nobody wants Joe Biden to run. Most people don't want Trump to run. But they are the people that I think you're right. I think they are going to win the nominations. I think we're going to see a repeat of an election most people don't want. Why that's happening? Somebody will write a great dissertation on this someday, like the anti-democratic nature of democracy. Where the worst, to paraphrase Hayek, where he says the worst rise to the top. There's something there. I don't want to see that matchup again. I think we should get you back in there, AP. I think I'm going to start. I'm going to donate to the Austin Peterson for President campaign. We're getting you back. We're going to get a libertarian in there.
No, I don't think so. No. That's funny. I do get asked that a lot, but I have to say it's there's something about that private life, where there's something wonderful about having that anonymity. It's funny. I was in the shower this morning having these thoughts because I was getting some like death threats and people telling me to make myself unalive because I got retweeted by Tim Pool yesterday. And I was thinking this, I was like, how can I package this advice to young people? And how could you even theoretically pull this off? But I thought about how if I got that amount of hatred from just getting retweeted by Tim Pool, can you imagine what Tim Pool's DMs must look like on a daily basis? The amount of hate that he gets with like 1 million followers and all that, all the fame and celebrity. I guess so what I was thinking about in the shower this morning, I was like, if I could tell people, young people, listen, if you can get famous and rich in the media and that's what you want, be a celebrity, do it. But if you can dwell on the margins of fame, like I do, if you can just be in the limelight every once in a while, pop into the limelight, make yourself, known, get a little fame and notoriety, make a comfortable living in the media and things like that. You're not like super rich or anything like that, but you're not poor or whatever. And then not have to deal with all the the negative side effects of fame than do that, because it's definitely much better to not have to deal with that kind of like hatred and acid and bile every single day. I mean, not that you and I probably wouldn't appreciate making a little bit more money, maybe being a little bit more famous, John, but I have to say, getting your piece in getting your tweet in Fox News yesterday in the Daily Mail must have felt nice, but you probably also would love not having to protect your family from death threats every day, right?
Yeah, no, it is funny. Like my kids ask me sometimes, they're like, "Dad, are you famous?" And I'm like, "No, but I don't want to be famous." And I think you can be successful without, like, even Hollywood actors, right? We kind of think of them as all fame, but some of them live very normal lives, right? Like they're not living in California. They'll shoot their films wherever, on location. But they say no to all the where you're getting hounded by the paparazzi all the time. Like there's ways to avoid that, and there's ways to do it. I think what you and I do as well without getting, to the point where you're just inundated with stuff. Yeah, it's a good point on Tim Pool, right? Like he's kind of that next level. I've had death threats. I had during COVID, people said they'd hope my kids would die because I wrote something about masks they didn't like. I've had a little bit, but I haven't had to deal with a whole lot of that, and I wouldn't want to. And to bring it back to the presidency, I think today you have to expect that if you're going to run for office. And even people, like if you're just going to be in Congress, you're going to get a lot of that. And some people, use that to their advantage. Like they'll show their hate mail and say, "Look at me! Like, can you believe they're the party of hate?" This isn't on one side, right? Like if you get in that limelight, you're going to get flack from crazy people, and that's sort of the nature of politics today.
I don't mind taking myself and stuff like that. It doesn't bother me. I could take it, but when they come after my family or my kids or things like that, or anybody who I'm related to or whatever, that's when it starts to really get to me. But
It's weird. I just mute them, like I
yeah.
just say, "All right, goodbye,"
No, for sure. One last thing, and I know we were supposed to talk about generational wealth transfer because you are an economics guy, but uh, this was far more interesting. So, can I ask you, talking about self-defense, like imagine if you had to defend yourself. I mean, would you think twice if you had to defend yourself against a black man versus a white man, especially if you were in public?
I don't think so. I think, like in a situation like that, you're just going to have to, do what you need to do. I don't think your brain really has time to respond to those things. So speaking for myself, I don't think I would. And I hope I never have to, right? Those are things, I got 3 firearms, I got a rifle, a pistol, and a shotgun. And I'm not a guy, I have a concealed carry. I almost never do it. I just don't, I've never felt the need to.
Do you think there's more
Is it?
danger in defending yourself against someone who is of a protected class?
I don't deny that, partly because of the way media works today, right? We've seen it. You can have people get shot in America every day, right? We know this. It's a massive country. People have always been shot in America, and we have 350 million people or whatever in the country. We have a lot of guns, a lot of crime, right? So you do have these things. And when it's a white on black crime, those are the ones that tend to go viral, right? That's not a secret. We know it. Some of
Because
these,
it's so rare, right?
well, it is rare, right? Like we know most crime, whether you're white or black, it's white on white crime or black on black crime. When you see that crossover, like of a white person and a black victim, those stories can go viral real fast, and because of the racial history, and now media those are the stories they're looking for to go viral and to have this potential. Like it's something, you ask, yes, who George Floyd is, everyone know. Ask people if they know who Daniel Shaver is, right? I'm guessing Daniel Shaver.
No, actually, it doesn't ring a bell, but it's Monday morning.
Okay, it's Monday morning. He was one of the he was shot in Arizona by police, and he was a white kid. He was a pest control guy. And it was the, people think like, oh, it's an execution style. We hear that thing. He was on his knees. He was on his knees walking towards police when they shot him. And nobody
he was
knows
the one who was
that
like crawling on his knees.
Right.
Yeah, he was shot by like that young punk cop who like was like screaming at him, and it was all on camera and stuff like that. And
It wasn't that one screaming though. There was 2 cops, and one of them was screaming. One was quiet, and the one that panicked, the younger cop panicked and shot him. But nobody remembers that one because it was a white cop shooting a white victim. If that was a different one, I think that would have been a story on a different level. It would have been George
Oh, if it had
Floyd or
been a black
something.
man who was like
Yeah.
begging for his life on his knees, all that, yeah, it would have been a much bigger deal for sure.
Yeah, and that's what, I think the classical liberal view is we are all humans. We don't need to treat people differently based on race. We don't, all these things, treat people equally. That is the goal. We know, like, are there challenges for that? Yes, and we create challenges a lot. Some of these challenges we create ourselves by ginning all.
John, are communists really people though, John?
They absolutely are. I'm learning about one right now. You might not be able to see it. I just bought a great new book on Trotsky, and the author I watched doing a interview on YouTube, and it was fabulous. I'm like, I got to learn more about Trotsky. And
his most fascinating period to me was when he led the Red Army against the sailors of Kronstadt and the Kronstadt Rebellion, because that was really the end of the democratic experiment of the Soviet Revolution. Anyways, I got to run. John, this was a great conversation. Congrats on getting the shout out in Fox News and the Daily Mail. You're out there, you're stirring the pot. We love to see it, to talk about those more exciting topics sometimes more than the economic stuff as well, even though you are the managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education. Real quick, anything you want to plug before we go?
Economics is sexy too. Don't forget that. No, yeah, definitely find me on Substack. Readers can, or listeners can see me on Fee, of course, right, Norman. But my Substack is The Take. John Miltimore. Look, it's fun growing that. I publish there every day, so check it out. I'll also plug it in the YouTube hotline so people can find it there.
Economics is sexy. That's why economists do it with models. John Miltimore, managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education. Have a great week. Thanks for your time today.
You too, AP. Take care, man.
Thank you very much. When we get back, we're going to speak to Officer Dominick Izzo. We'll talk to him a little bit about how he feels about vigilantism. I'll ask him about his thoughts on that Jordan Neely case, whether or not he thinks that Marine who defended himself and others in the subway should be guilty of the crime of manslaughter. We'll get his opinion, as well as see what Officer Dominick Izzo is up to these days as a Wing Chun practitioner. Everybody have fun tonight. Everybody Wing Chun tonight. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Step right up, ladies and gents, to learn about the coolest president yet. He's not just any old prez, he's Calvin Coolidge, and boy oh boy is he different from the rest. He was quiet as a mouse, but don't you underestimate his power. He knew how to handle money, and he didn't waste an hour. He cut taxes, lowered debt, and balanced the budget with ease. No wonder the Roaring Twenties brought such prosperity and peace. But don't take my word for it. Grab a copy of Calvin the Coolest President and see for yourself. It's a children's book that'll make you smile and help your little ones learn about wealth. You can find it on Amazon Kindle or get your hands on a paperback at apforlibertyshop.com. So come on down and get yourself a copy of the book that's making waves all around town. You won't regret it, so get ready to be floored, because Calvin Coolidge, well, folks, he really scored.
I'm a public defender. I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
Any real world experience.
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Glad to have you here. Hope you're enjoying the show so far. Grateful to have our guest, John Miltimore, as a regular Monday staple of the show. If you like John and you like the content that you've been hearing this morning so far, make sure you hit that like button. Help us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. That's what we're all about here on the Wake Up America show. That's what we stand up for. Nice to see all of our friends over on Rumble watching us today. Make sure that you click that like button over there. I see we've already got a bunch of likes there. We're grateful for that, as well as our OG Cantina crew joining us today. Nice to see Hot Water 84 with Tolly Owens, Quest Fanning, Robbie Thurman, Maria Krabs, Al Johnson, Studio 314, our new buddy, Poperoni, Mad Mom Anons here with us, Corey C., R Volt 24, and many others as well. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. We're super grateful for you. We've got lots of great content to talk to you about today and lots of great guests. But before we get our buddy Dominick Izzo on the show today, I want to talk to you very briefly about our sponsor, Shell Shock CBD. Many of you know John Burke, right? He is the owner and founder of Shell Shock CBD, which I highly endorse and recommend. If you're a big fan of CBD products or Delta 8 products in general, I highly endorse and recommend his excellent brand of edibles and gummies and tea. And goodness gracious, there's so much choice available at John Burke's shop. You really have to check it out. Visit shellshockcbd.com and use my code AP for Liberty to get yourself a 10% discount. I was a skeptic, a CBD and Delta 8 skeptic for a long time, but here's what changed my mind. Originally I had visited the Kansas City Renaissance Festival, and I had seen this Delta 8 stuff before, and I was like, all right, it's legal. Let me just try it and see if maybe it'll help me to, cure my back pain or help with my, aches and pains of getting old. So then I try this Delta 8 stuff at the Renaissance Festival, and I start seeing fairies and pirates and people dressed up as in skeleton costumes and all kinds of weird stuff. But then I realized it's just because I'm at the Renaissance Festival. It didn't do jack squat. So I'm saying to myself, no, you know what, this stuff, it doesn't work. It's not functional. maybe, or maybe I just got a bad batch at the Renfest. Well, John sends me a big box full of this stuff of his Delta 8, his gummies, his roll-on CBD. And there's a difference between CBD and Delta 8 because, and I don't know what this stuff has an effect on you if you've ever ingested THC before, but Delta 8 makes me a little bit like wired and chatty. I know that some people it has the opposite effect, but there's one way to find out, and that's to get you some at shellshockcbd.com. Use my code AP for Liberty for a discount in the shop. All I'm going to say is that stuff works. I must have just gotten a bad batch at the Renaissance Festival because my buddy John's products, Shell Shock CBD, absolutely work. I haven't had the courage to open up the Delta bar, and I'll tell you why. Because the Delta bar, I'm kind of a baby these days and stuff like that as I've gotten a little bit older. The Delta bar is like, let's see, milk chocolate, not a candy bar. Keep out of reach of kids, absolutely. 40 milligrams per square, 300, 500 milligrams total. So 40 per square. That's a little scary to me. I don't know about you guys and where you're at with your journey on this stuff these days, but definitely be careful of that if you're like me and a little bit sensitive. Just a little 5 milligrams or perhaps little tinctures might be a little bit more on your line. But visit them today because they're supporting the Wake Up America show and they can support your pain management. Yeah, you're not going to be feeling any pain with the Delta 8 for sure. Check them out, shellshockcbd.com. Use that code AP for Liberty. That's AP, the number 4, and we'll be glad to have it. Matt Unruh says, I'm never commenting before the shout-outs anymore. Why is that? Um, Al Johnson says, the fires still not stirring debate and chat comment. What fires are those? Camellia says that she's mostly just listening. I drive to St. Louis last night and didn't get in until 2 a.m., so I'm moving slow. Yes, I'm very slow as well. Andy Opperman says, so many fires this morning, I can hardly pay attention. I gotcha. I got fires happening right now as well. I got a lot of stuff going on the show, breaking down. But we're glad to have almost 50 people watching us over on the Wake Up America show. Oop, yep, I just gave it away. Dominick Izzo is not here as of yet. I did book him to be here at 8 a.m., so it's still 1 minute early. But yes, Maria Crab says, don't do the devil's weed anymore, but the gummies were really tasty. Now I eat vitamin D gummies. Well, here's the good news. They've got vitamin D gummies over there that are non-psychoactive, Maria. So you have no excuse but to head to our friend shellshockcbd.com because they do have some vitamin D and ashwagandha and other items that are, again, non-psychoactive, non-Delta 8 kind of stuff. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. Typically, I would have a guest right now at, well, 7:59, but hopefully he will be waking up soon and joining us. Maybe we got our signals crossed on the time. But I did want to hear from Dominick Izzo to discuss with him about this vigilantism event in New York. And I will come back to that story in just a few moments, especially if he decides to join us here and on the program. But I'll go back to now another story that I always have backup stories, and say good morning to Cries of Treason, who says that they adjusted their work schedule and should be able to watch a little more regularly now. Boom. Thank you very much, brother. I know you can't hear the applause, but I'm giving you applause. So thank you very much for being a part of the show and joining us live. It helps us to spread the message of freedom, and we certainly know that you support that as well if you're a viewer of the show. Okay, so this was an interesting story that I read yesterday. This is regarding, here's the headline. Boomers can't conceptualize, says one college student, that says that older generations don't know about inflation. They never had to fight for jobs. And the comments below are fairly interesting. Since the 1980s, of course, the economy has changed in ways that are kind of difficult to describe, right? The real impact of inflation and of wage stagnation really isn't apparent until you really dig deep into the numbers. But that's what one college grad recently did when her mother commented on the idea that younger workers, quote, expect too much. She says that I think boomers just can't conceptualize the struggle that younger people are facing today because they never had to fight for jobs. If there are any boomers that are joining us in the chat this morning, I'd be super interested to hear whether or not you agree with that. This young woman, she was 21 years old. She says that she She believes that older workers might find it difficult to empathize with the economic struggles of young people after a discussion that this woman had with her mother about the mismatched expectations of employees from their employers. Now, this woman says that her mother back in the day made $36,000 a year on as an entry level bank teller in 1980. So think about that. So her mom made $36,000 a year in 1980, and she was an entry level bank teller. Now, meanwhile, the average entry level worker in America now makes about $55,000 a year. Okay. But when you adjust for inflation, the entry level salary in 1982, which was about $33,000, that was actually closer to about $102,000 in today's dollars. Let me repeat that for those who suck at math, including myself, who sucks at math. $36,000 a year, her bank teller mother made in 1980. The average entry level worker now makes about 55,000. Okay, but when you adjust for inflation, that entry level salary in 1982 was closer to $102,000 in today's dollars. So effectively, if you are a recent college graduate, you are making half as much as your parents did if they graduated 40 years ago. This is also true for low income workers. So the federal minimum hourly wage in the US was $3.10 in 1980, and it's $7.25 today. So workers may have doubled their income over 40 years, but the cost of living has actually accelerated faster than people's incomes have had time to keep up. So a dollar in 1980 had the same purchasing power as $3.68 today. So to preserve purchasing power by 1980 standards, the minimum wage, if it had kept up with inflation, should have gone to perhaps $11.40. Now, I know what you all are saying and thinking right now, gnashing and grinding your teeth, saying, oh, well, Austin, we don't believe in the minimum wage. Yes, it's true. Obviously, libertarians are not in favor of a federal minimum wage, but inflation is a killer. Like our friend Hotwater84 said over on YouTube, it absolutely is a killer. And it's the kind of thing that it will sink us if we don't get it under control. It will destroy our economy, and it will make us subservient to economies that have a stronger currency. I mean, a lot of conservatives are really concerned about China coming in and buying up American land. If that's the kind of thing that you're worried about right now, you need to be worried about inflation, right? Because state governments have stepped in to try and prevent China and other countries from being able to purchase American farmland, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I don't know how good the government is going to be at passing those kinds of bans or even enforcing those kinds of bans, because you and I all know that corruption exists, of course, at the highest level of politics. And even if something on paper says it's a law, they don't enforce them against the global elites. Laws are not meant to protect laws are not meant to protect the little people. Laws are passed to stop the little people from threatening the global elites. So please forgive me if I'm skeptical about state or federal laws that would prevent people from overseas from purchasing up American assets, right? So here's the thing. If you're really concerned about that, if you don't want to incentivize American industry and like InBev buying up Budweiser, for example, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But if you really don't want to see that being incentivized, you need to have an American dollar that actually has some buying power. For example, my wife and I, when we traveled to Japan recently, she she and I got a really great deal because Japan had so screwed their economy with the coronavirus pandemic. They actually had locked down their country. It was their borders. Japan had a very closed borders policy, very Trumpian MAGA policy. Nobody goes in, and Japanese people can only come in and out. But the economy got so screwed by their isolationist policies over the last 2 years that their currency took a major hit. So good for us, right? Good for foreigners. We got to go to Japan earlier this year and buy up whatever we wanted at cheap because our dollar was like 75 yen to the dollar. So essentially, it was like a 25% automatic price drop for us. And there's all these other situations going on in Japan with their housing crisis, where they're actually in Japan, they can't get enough foreigners to come in and buy up their properties because their population crisis has ballooned to such an effect that they're actually, if you want to buy an abandoned house in Japan, you can get property in Japan and buy an abandoned house for $25,000. I'm actually surprised that BlackRock and many of these other major institutions haven't stepped in and started buying them. Um, the Wake Up America show will be glad to have Cliff Maloney on here in just a few minutes. He's going to be coming into studio. We're looking forward to having him on the program. He's going to be joining us, and we're going to, since Dominick didn't show up today, I'll probably get Cliff on a little bit earlier. But in regards to the economy, if we don't get inflation under control, what do you think the foreigners are going to do? They're going to come in here, and again, it's not something that I necessarily worry about too much. I worry about inflation. I don't worry that my next door neighbor might be, Chinese or something like that. But the fact is that if that is something that you're concerned about, inflation is something that you really have to get in check, because all you're doing is incentivizing people overseas to use their stronger currencies against our weaker currency to be able to buy up American assets and things like that. So anyways, inflation, get it under control, and we'll have a lot of our problems solved. But, everything has gone up but our salaries, right? So boomers had the door wide open, and then they slammed it and barred it behind them. It's just like that for every generation, unfortunately. But, we are going to talk a little bit about the national debt here with Cliff Maloney. He's walking into the studio right now. Let me go to a commercial break. I'm going to get him in the chair, get him mic'd up, and we're going to talk to him about that when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Hello, I'm George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great. Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning to the Cantina crew. This is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian, and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.